to Talking Jets. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot, Mr. Dom C. Dom, how you doing tonight?
What's up, Ryan? How are you, buddy?
Good to be hanging out with you again. I had to put up with Tigo last week.
Yeah, I was on vacation, man. Hopefully Tigo held the fort, didn't argue too much, and did all that good stuff.
He was all right. We like Tigo. How was your vacation?
It's wonderful. Wonderful. Did a whole bunch of stuff, man. We were out in Smokies, man, Smoky Mountains. Ooh. So, spent some time relaxing, like quiet time on a lake, and then spent half the time, exploring the sights and sounds of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Went to amusement parks, went down to the University of Tennessee, saw my nephew. So, all in all, very good week.
That sounds like a blast. Well, you didn't miss much up this way. The final preseason game was a snooze fest, with the exception of Malachi Moore going off. Zaire Barnes had a really nice hit on a running back. And then we watched Cook versus Martinez kind of duke it out for that spot. So we're going to get into a whole bunch of the 53-man roster. We're going to talk about what my 53-man roster is, what Dom's 53-man roster is, and then we can kind of talk through the differences between the two, where we think things might change. I've had to shift mine. I know Dom's had to shift his a good amount over the last, I would say 5-6 days. I had Jamin Davis making my list prior to him getting released yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever day that was. And going to be interesting to see what you've done, see what I've done. And chat, you're gonna let us know your thoughts throughout the whole night. I see Ant Jets in the chat, Duncan, Peter, Zachary, Jerome. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoy the content that Dom and I are putting out here. And without further ado, let's jump into some of the 53-man roster. We'll go through mine first. I think this is just because I have it pulled up here. All right, so let me talk through my decision-making. I have two quarterbacks, Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor. Admittedly, I'm a little nervous because Tyrod Taylor hopefully is going to be ready for the home opener. If he's not, that kind of changes the calculus a little bit here. Unless they feel that both quarterbacks, Martinez and Cook, are going to clear waivers, and then they can, drop Tyrod down and have an extra guy come up or something like that. But I have us holding on to two quarterbacks this year. I had 5 running backs. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis are all locks, and then I kept Donovan Edwards. I wouldn't mind him potentially being traded. I think I would be kind of all right on my side of things, but I do like what Edwards brings to the table. I think there's a chance Breece Hall is traded at some point. If you can kind of stash your next guy up, it's not the worst thing. Now, with that said, I really like 𝐀𝐟𝐼𝐿, which is a little concerning because I don't really want to have 5 running backs, but I think he's kind of set himself apart as the kick returner 1 for us. As I go through wide receiver, I had us keeping 6. Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson as my top 3. I had Lazard hit the IR. You can see that in the bottom right-hand side. Irv Charles is also on the PUP in my situation. He can't come back, I don't think, till halfway through the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
He's got that ACL that he is recovering from. Arian Smith and Brandon Smith, the two Smiths, wind up making, obviously Arian was going to make the roster. And then I have Jamal Pritchett as the punt returner. I thought he's been absolutely electric from a forced missed tackles perspective. I've really liked what we've gotten out of him. So 6 wide receivers for the New York Jets, and then Lazard and Irv on the, not hitting the active roster. I kept 4 tight ends, this is where I start to feel a little squirrely, because I have us keeping Andrew Beck as a fullback, which is also a tight end kind of a thing, and Donovan Edwards, which feels like far too many backs, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I think where my logic starts to fall apart is running back or tight end. We're probably going to drop 1, potentially even 2 of the players within this list. But I have Mason Taylor, Jeremy Ruckert, Stone Smart, Andrew Beck as my 4 tight ends. Jeremy Ruckert, to me, is the one that feels like it's probably could be the odd man out. Now, the only reason I did not cut him is because he has a pre-existing relationship with Justin Fields from their time at Ohio State, and I think there might be some hope that there could be a rekindling of the chemistry that they could have potentially had. Now, that being said, they didn't really throw a lot at Ruckert at Ohio State, so maybe I'm picking my own roster apart here as we talk through this. Offensive line-wise, I have 9 offensive linemen making the roster. 4 tackles in Olu and Membu being our starters, Okafor and Mitchell being the next 2 up. Mitchell gives us that guard flexibility as well as being a tackle. For the guards, you got AVT and Simpson and Newman coming in. That gives us the guard kind of center flexibility on top of Tippmann and Josh Myers at center, who Tippmann gives us obviously strong guard flexibility, starting center. Josh Myers has a Pro Bowl incentive in his deal, former center for Justin Fields. I think it just makes sense that we're keeping at least those 2. So I have 9 offensive linemen across the board there. Defensive line wise, I don't feel great about our edge rushers. I'll be honest. JJ's coming off the injury. We don't know how he's going to respond in live game action. Will McDonald, he put on some weight, but is he going to be the every down edge rusher, edge presence that we're kind of hoping he develops into? That's yet to be seen. I got Michael Clemens, Tyler Barron, and Braden McGregor rounding out my 5 edge rushers. Interior defensive line, Quinnen Williams, Harrison Phillips, Jay Tufele, and Jawan Briggs. I like our D tackle room, I'll be honest. After the 2 trades this past week, I think I really like Harrison Phillips. Jawan Briggs, I think, is at least trending in the right direction given the last 5 or 6 games he had last year, rolling into the preseason games this year. I think you could be optimistic at that point, but I think the Jets have figured out a little bit more on that interior part of the defensive line. Linebackers, I got us with 4. Jamie and Sherwood, Quincy up top. Mauigoa and McCrary Ball round out the linebacker room. Like I said, I did have Jamin Davis yesterday, so I switched that out. I had us keeping 5 at one point. Outside cornerback. Sauce and Stevens lead the way. Then I got Stiggers, Thomas, and Bernard Converse. You could probably shift JBC around to one of these other positions, but I think his flexibility is going to keep him on this team. Michael Carter II is our slot cornerback. And then our safeties are going to be Tony Adams and Andrew Sisko to start. And then I do think Malachi Moore could surpass one of them or just see a lot of playing time over the course of the season. I thought he played well the final preseason game. Lots of starts at Alabama. And then Isaiah Oliver, who gives us a little bit of flexibility as well for some special teams presence. And then rounding out the special teams themselves, I've got Nick Folk, Austin McNamara as our 2 kickers, and long snapper Thomas Hennessy. That gives us 26 players on offense, 23 players on defense, and 3 on special teams. For a defensive-minded head coach, I feel like I may have overdone the offense. So we'll see where that goes. What are your thoughts on my roster as you see it right now?
Well, very similar to mine. I mean, I think there's only a couple of differences. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Listen. I'll ask you this: who are players 51, 52, and 53 on your roster? Who are the last 3 to make them?
So I think for me, the ones I kind of went back and forth on primarily would be Donovan Edwards, Jeremy Ruckert, and then probably Brandon Smith if Lazard had to make the roster. That would probably be where I'd make that final cut. As far as who I'd swap in, the areas that
you think Ruckert is really on the fence?
He played so late into the last preseason game where I thought he was. Same with Andrew Beck too, honestly. I thought both of them were safer than their depth in the final preseason or their play in the final preseason game maybe indicates. Yeah, I thought Andrew Beck was a lock until the final preseason game, and I thought with him playing that late, maybe there's a chance he's not making a roster. I think there's also some clever things we could do if you wanted to cut Nick Folk and Thomas Hennessy and save 2 additional players with a little handshake agreement like, hey, Hennessy and Folk, you're going to be coming back. We'll throw you a little extra change. Just since you're a vested veteran, you don't have to be exposed to the waiver wire. Like, I think there could be some of that we're not penciling in right now that would allow you to keep a few extra players. But
in that situation, you gotta, they can't practice, and they're going to start practicing this week in preparation for week 1. So, what moves are you looking to make to, kind of shoe fly Folk and whomever you said? off though. Like, Cowart, I think we both have him going on IR, right?
Yes, correct.
But this year, the NFL made a rule that you don't have to put him on the 53 before you move him. You're allowed 2 moves automatically to the short-term IR. So in essence, you can keep 55 guys.
Okay. So that does. So yeah, I guess those 2 would actually stay on my roster with the 53 that I currently have. Yeah, I guess other guys that you could consider if you were to move off of Hennessy and Folk, like let's say you wanted to keep an extra edge rusher or an extra linebacker on this roster, or maybe you wanted to hold on to, I don't want to say an extra running back. I think it's going to be tough to cut one of those guys.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the mine, because like I said, I only have a couple different moves than kind of you did. I also had 26 offense. I also had 24 defense.
Real quick, let me just real quick. Am I missing a player? 26 and 23, 20. I have to be missing one player somewhere. Oh, I had 52. That's why I had a 53-man roster. I got 52 guys. It's like, wait a second, doing my math wrong. So I can add an extra guy somewhere in there. Before you do, I just want to throw up Cameron's comment so we don't lose anything as we go. Cameron says, I'd turn Hall into draft picks and an edge rusher or someone to replace CJ now that he has retired. Is this call-in night? Yeah, I'll do call-ins later on tonight, probably around 9:15 or so, if I had to guess, once we're done talking about all this stuff. I'm hoping not to need to turn Breece into draft picks. I hope he balls out and we wind up wanting to keep him and re-sign him and everything. But if we wind up in a situation near the deadline that is unfavorable, I would hope that we've utilized Hall enough in the beginning part of the season to raise his draft stock enough to justify a draft pick. Because at that point, if we don't plan on franchising him or re-signing him, I would move him, because I do think whatever pick you get for him is probably more valuable than whatever he provides you from week 9 to the end of the season in a season that might otherwise be lost. What are your thoughts on Hall and the potential of moving him?
Yeah. Listen, I think if anything, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, I think if anything, Aaron Glenn and this regime has told you is that they're going to do everything in their power to win. I think Breece Hall makes you a better team. Whether or not he's the bell cow for Aaron Glenn and 𝐀𝐟𝐟𝐢𝐥𝐢𝐚, probably not. He's not going to be. He's definitely going to be losing some touches to both Davis and Allen. So I just don't see. I think we have to pump the brakes a little bit on Donovan Edwards. No offense to you, Ryan.
That's right.
But we always have one of these, these darlings that kind of we all fall in love with, and I think Donovan Edwards is him this year. It was. Who was the receiver now? Last year he's now with Kansas City. I forget what
Brownlee
name is already. Jason Brownlee or Bam Knight or so on and so forth. Donovan Edwards is not going to be a suffice enough reason to give, to get rid of Breece Hall when his stock is probably at its absolute lowest. They're going to try to win, and the team is better with Breece Hall than without him. Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis are not going to carry the workload. They can't give you everything that Breece can. So I just don't see it. I could, if you wanted to say, listen, I don't think Breece is going to be a Jet next year, I can get behind that. Maybe they just move on and, take the comp pick, if or when if he signs for something, worthwhile. But I don't see them trading him now. I just don't.
I don't think we're going to get a comp pick from Breece Hall, because we're going to have like $80 million in salary cap space. So I think we're going to actually offset whatever we could have potentially gotten from him, unless we just retain all our own guys. I guess that could still work into the formula, but who knows? It's an interesting conversation that I think Jet fans are going to be banging their heads against the wall all season for. Before we hop onto yours, Dom, now that I've come to the realization that I'm missing one player on this roster, what I'd like to work on my D line. Do you think I should keep an interior defensive lineman or an edge if you had to keep one additional player?
Well, you have Cowart there, who's going to take your, once he's healthy, is going to be your fifth IDO.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at D-line, I'd probably keep an edge. Honestly, I think we differ right now because I kept 6 edges, you only kept 5.
Mm-hmm. Now that being said,
it was
only because I forgot one additional player on here.
I struggle back and forth. I'm trying to fit in a fifth linebacker or a guy like Dean Clark or Jarius Monroe who can do a lot of things on the back end of the team. Like a backup slot, a fifth safety, so on and so forth. I'm looking at one of those guys, keeping a fifth linebacker or carrying one of those guys. And as we get into mine, you'll see I chose to go with 6 edges and 4 interior. I had 5 and 5. McGregor was my last addition on my roster, and LT3 was the last guy taken off. I would love to keep LT3 here, but the writing seems to be on the wall with his little weird cryptic texts or posts on Twitter, and then he wasn't at practice today, which is kind of an ominous sign that he's not going to probably be long for the roster. So I added Braden McGregor and I took out LT3. I also added Brady Cook on the active 53. I don't have Donovan Edwards. That's the difference on offense that we have. And I think Brady Cook on the active 53 makes kind of some sense, considering you have Tyrod Taylor. I called him Tyrone Taylor in my thing. Should be Tyrod Taylor.
I'll give you a quick edit.
Yeah, considering that he's coming off of meniscus surgery, and Justin Fields is a guy who hasn't played a full season yet. He's always getting banged up because he runs the ball so much and he's very physical in doing so. So I kept Brady Cook on there. Could he pass off into the practice squad, not get claimed on waivers, and then Jets call him up when they need him? Yeah, maybe you can do that, but I just didn't see another like I think that third quarterback, whether it's Brady Cook or someone else that they claim or make a move for, is going to play more of a role than, or has a chance to play more of a role than we'd like to talk about. So other than that, I think everything else is kind of the same. Like I said, I added the 6th edge. I'd like to find a way to get a 5th linebacker around there. And I don't know if it's Zaire Barnes. I don't know if it's Jackson Sermon. I don't know if that's the area that they utilize in waivers to go fill. That's that, man. I have Alan Lazard on my active roster. You don't. You added Brandon Smith, who also was not at practice today. So that's the real difference here.
I had Lazard on IR, which I guess if Lazard's not hitting that IR, then you would move Brandon Smith off my sheet. You'd probably hope that he makes the practice squad or something along those lines. Did I cut you off? Where were you on your list?
That's really all I had about my 53.
So basically, pretty similar. I would say it looks like Cook, Donovan Edwards is like the one I had here. We had 4 we each had Beck making it. I just had him under tight end. You had him under running back. Other than that, it looks pretty similar.
Yeah, Donovan Edwards. You had Donovan Edwards. I had Brady Cook.
Yep.
And you had Brandon Smith, and I had Eric Watts.
Yeah. So, and I needed to add one too. So I could even add Eric Watts as like my edge, and that would round out my 53-man roster. Yeah, I have a hard time. Like, I don't want to just cut Donovan Edwards. I'm hoping we can get like something for him, but it's probably just me wearing my green tinted glasses and, not thinking of this as critically as I probably need to be. Blitz Crew comes in, says, I think we will be able to pick. Do you think we'll be able to pick swap Warren, meaning Carter Warren? I like Skinner over Lazard long term. Lazard not in our future, and with Skinner, I there is some potential. Do you think there's any chance Lazard doesn't make this roster? I feel like it'd be a little surprising after he restructured his deal. We've heard him, Glenn, talk about how good he is at blocking out of the slot. Like, that to me just feels like it'd be a little surprising this year.
Yeah, I think that Alan Lazard's going to be on this roster. For sure.
What do you make of Skinner? You think he's just practice squad kind of guy, or what's his deal?
Yeah. So the thing is, you know, you have Lazard, you have Tyler Johnson, and you have oh my God. You have Josh Reynolds, right? Mm-hmm. Those three guys, Lazard, Johnson, and Reynolds, and Garrett, really, aren't offering you anything on special teams, right? Neither is Brandon Smith. He's not offering you anything on special teams. So Jamal Pritchett, you know, obviously has the return, you know, abilities. He can offer you something elsewhere. I think Xavier Gibson offers you something. I don't know if, you know, I don't know what Skinner is going to offer you, if anything, on special teams. So when you already have four guys in a wide receiver room that don't offer you anything, I think some of those last couple guys better. You know, Arian Smith can return, you know, he plays on specials. He can return kicks if you need him. And obviously Pritchett does return kicks, or punts at least. So I just don't see where the extra spot for Skinner is. He'll skate by. He's still developmental. I think you put him on the practice squad, and you know, he's this year's Jason Brownlee.
We're looking at the poll question right now. What position group will the Jets make a waiver claim on? 78% of the chat is saying wide receiver right now. We've got to see some trade rumors sort of swirl around Jacoby Myers. He's asked for a trade from the Raiders. Terry McLaurin got his 3-year contract done today, $96 million, so he's not going anywhere. Is there a player out there you think the Jets might be keeping an eye on as far as wide receiver goes, or what are your thoughts on that position group in general?
I don't think that the Jets are going to trade for a wide receiver. I know Diana Rossini has been, you know, hot about that. I think if they add to the room, it'll be through the waiver, you know, and realistically, I'm not sure if anyone that you add through waivers is going to really, you know, raise the ceiling, or even raise the ceiling of the room. I don't think anyone you're going to bring in is going to be that much better than the Alan Lazards, than the Jamal Pritchett's, than the area, you know, than the Tyler Johnsons. You know, I looked at it today. Some of the names that, you know, are on the bubble. Deontay Johnson, you know, is he that much better? Is he that much of a difference maker than any of these guys? I don't know. He's probably the best one. You know, what were some other names? Javon Baker from New England, 4th rounder last year.
Tim Patrick.
If he can't make, Tim Patrick. Like, you know, I don't think there's anybody there that's really raising the ceiling of this group. So I think that they're going to go with the guys that they know, the guys that they're comfortable with, and the guys that, you know, hate to say it, are going to help them effectively and efficiently run the rock, because they're going to do a whole lot of that this year.
J-Mo comes in, says, I claim Desmond Watson. I like how overweight he is.
Yeah. Have you seen Desmond Watson?
He's enormous. Yeah, it's like the 400 pounds, right?
400 and some odd pounds from University of Florida. Yeah.
He's on Tampa right now, I think, right?
He was released.
Rats. So he's available. Just some fatties up front. That would be nuts. That would be absolutely wild. I do not want someone that large on our team. I feel like the body's not meant to carry that kind of weight.
So, Ryan, I didn't even ask you, or I didn't even look, to be honest with you. Yeah. So you kept 4 tackles, right?
Bam, yes.
And the same 4 that I did?
Same 4.
What are your thoughts about Warren? Do you think he can net you a draft pick?
I mean, I would love that. Honestly, if I were to swap out a player on offense, like let's say I had to lose Edwards, I think I'm probably leaning towards a tackle at that point. In which case I would keep Warren. I like Carter Warren more than Max Mitchell because of the controllable years on Warren's contract. I feel like I kind of know what Max Mitchell is, but I could understand them choosing Max Mitchell because of the positional flexibility between tackle and guard. I think, that Mitchell is a little bit better than Warren right now. Admittedly, I don't want to see either one of them get the field. But I don't know. I didn't really consider moving Warren for a late round pick, but do you think that is something that would be feasible, like a late round pick swap?
Yeah, I think just because of the position he plays and the need at tackle, especially a guy who has experience playing left and right, I think that there will be a market for him. What you're going to get, you're probably going to get a 6th rounder, or like one of those swaps or something like that. I don't know. Nothing more than that. But if you think about it, you make an interesting point. The contractual control that you have with Warren, at least for 2 more years, you look at this offense, right, that you have up there. Justin Fields, he's the only one under contract next year. Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, they're the only ones under contract next year. Garrett Wilson and Arian Smith, the only ones under contract next year. Mason Taylor, the only one under contract next year. Olu and Membu, the only ones under contract next year. We have no guards under contract next year as of right now. And Tippmann is the only center. It's the only interior guy under contract. So there's a lot of backfill and depth that's going to need to be addressed on this team. So keeping Carter Warren would at least give you a fail-safe in one of those spots. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. The one thing to keep in mind is you have about a 30% turnover rate of every roster each year. If you figure the average career length is about 3.5 years or so, from like a it varies obviously team over team, but I feel like a lot of our starters that are in place can be here beyond this year, or at least have someone coming up behind them that you feel comfortable with. The rest of the players, I think I don't want to even just call it undrafted free agency, but like I feel like some of the position groups, like guard, like tight end, like I don't know if you want to throw interior defensive line in here, but it feels like you can kind of plug and play some of these positions without investing a premium asset, whether that's a draft pick or high end free agent capital, to replace things pretty easily. Like you got your 2 tackles under contract, you've got your big wide receiver under contract. You're obviously looking for number 2 in that realm. Running backs are, I don't want to say a dime a dozen, but we've got a bunch of them right now. And then you're probably looking to draft a quarterback high. I think edge rusher is going to be a major, major need going into next offseason.
But we talked about all those guys that are not going to be here next year on the offense. When you look at the defense, right? You have
Harrison Phillips.
I'm looking at my board up here.
Yep.
All 6 of these edges are under contract for next year. No, I'm sorry, 5. Clemens is not. Clemens is in his walk year. Okay.
Yep.
Defensive linemen, 3 of the 4 are under contract for next year. Jay Tufeli is the only one who's not.
Is Phillips a 2-year deal?
He is.
So he's got? I didn't realize that.
He's got 2 years remaining. Yep. Linebackers, 3 of the 4 are under contract. Corners, all of them are under contract, including Michael Carter II. And the safeties, only Malachi Moore is under contract. So there's a lot of discrepancy in the depth on the defensive side than the offensive side. The offensive side, you're gonna need to make some real major changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're open to clean slating the tight end room outside of Mason Taylor. Like I don't think there's any real love for either Stone Spartan or Jeremy Ruckert moving forward, unless one of themselves sets themselves apart. Like I think a lot of the offense could potentially keep themselves around. Maybe not so much Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod's going to be gone. You're going to have Cook probably as your backup to Fields, and then a rookie as well. So that'll probably be like your 3 next year. For guard, I'd love to see some guys re-signed in season. I'd like to at least take care of one of AVT or Simpson. And I think there's the outside possibility that Josh Myers is either your center in 2026 with Tippmann slotting into the other guard spot, or you bring in another center through the draft or free agency or whatever. I don't think Tittman's necessarily a lock to stay at center long term on this team.
I don't think he's going to be at center. I think he's going to be a guard. I think he's going to take over for whichever one. Now, I don't know if Josh Myers is going to be the end result or the center of the future. He might that center might not be on this team right now.
I agree. I think if Myers is penciled in as the center, it might just be like going into the draft and then they try to add someone either through the draft or at another point. It's like a penciled in starter, but not necessarily like locked in.
Correct.
Potentially.
Correct.
Christian comes in. What's up, Christian? Rough take, but I put Allen over Hall. Kid's a beast. I really like Braylon Allen a lot. Like I think a lot of Jet fans are probably in a similar mindset. I think just because Hall is the incumbent from the last few years, he does offer some more explosiveness than Allen, even though Allen is like, just beating people up the middle. I think it's going to be close to a 50-50 split to start the season. I think Isaiah Davis will get like a little bit of the short end of the stick when it comes to the running game, but I think you'll see Breece and Braylon not so much maybe running, but on a touches perspective, I think it's going to skew a little bit closer to Breece, but it's going to be like a 60-40 Breece and Braylon kind of split. What are your thoughts on the two top running backs?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, I think Braylon's going to, definitely be in the mix. As he probably should, because I think he just offers a different skill set than Breece Hall does. So if I give you a percentage, I don't know, man. I'd say for every 5 series or for every 6 series, maybe Breece gets 3, Allen gets 2, and Isaiah Davis gets 1.
Okay, I feel like
something like that.
That's a logical split. Davis is so smart. I feel like even just his one play on the Fields touchdown is going to earn him some opportunities like in games because of the IQ. I see Sean in here saying JJ contract is up also right after this year. No, we did exercise his 5th-year option, so he's under contract for 2026.
Correct.
So really, like when you're looking at our roster, the main guys that are like I think key focal points are going to be AVT and John Simpson. You got Breece Hall, which I think a lot of us probably feel he's walking. And then I guess Quincy, right? Quincy would be
Quincy and maybe Cisco.
Cisco, yeah. I think the Jets are supposed to have $80 million in salary cap space. So like for me, I'd love to see us retain some of our own as opposed to bringing in like middling guys. Or even like retain our own. Like if I could take that $80 million and use 40 of it or 50 of it to retain the guys on our roster that have earned contracts. Like I'm not talking about like, oh, we just like Breece. He had a meh year. Like if that's the case, he walks. Quincy Williams would love to retain him. They added more guaranteed money to his deal, or maybe it was incentive money on this current year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind him hanging around a little bit longer. It depends how they feel about the linebackers behind him, more than likely. And AVT and Simpson, I mean, if you could bring both back, I feel like the continuity on the offensive line would be absolutely massive. We haven't seen steady Eddie offensive linemen in a while.
Yeah, I just don't know if you're going to bring both of them back. Like, what does AVT? Let's like walk with me here. AVT gets through the season healthy. He has a very AVT like season similar to last year. What was he last year? 11th rated guard, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in that middle of the pack kind of upper.
Well, I don't know if that's middle of the pack. I think he's upper echelon.
That would make sense.
Upper echelon. Maybe not the top, but upper echelon. What does that get him?
We talked about this
guards
before,
are making
like 20 million,
18 to 20.
Yeah.
Right. I know you don't have to pay them yet, but you have to think that, the tackles and Tittman are probably going to get money before, or, you have to allot money to those guys before you do to what will be in a 28-year-old AVT. I just don't know, man. I don't know if you're paying him 20 and then you're paying 30 to Olu, a year after that, and then you're paying maybe upwards to 25 for Will McDonald if you choose to keep him.
Well, that's the issue with paying Garrett and Sauce so early, because now every guy after 3 years, Will McDonald, Olu, all these guys are going to now want contracts. That's great because you could push the money off a little bit, but then you're like, okay, we don't get the benefit of the rest of the rookie deal of seeing them play out. Like Sauce and Garrett might just be special circumstances. Like, hey, these guys were all pros. They're offensive, defensive rookie of the year, whatever. Like, I think you could try to justify that, but like Will McDonald, if he pops off for 15 sacks, how are you not going to re-sign him after that kind of deal, at that kind of year? I don't know. I think you're onto something with AVT, though. I think because of the injury history, because of how good Simpson has been, probably because of how good Tippmann is at guard as well, it gives you some financial flexibility to maybe make a different decision, which bodes the question, like, if he's going to get a $20 million contract, there's got to be some degree of, like, value in moving him at some point, whether it's a tag and trade or something, like...
Or it's a short-term deal, like you give them 2 for 40 or something like that.
Yeah.
So that when the time comes and you got to pay the tackles, you can move on from.
Yes, that's a good way to look at it. Because if Olu, like his money, Garrett and Sauce's big money don't come in until after their rookie years are done.
Deals
so
are
like year 5, year 6 is where you're kind of like increasing their caps numbers a lot more. If Olu and Will McDonald make those similar type of contracts, then you're worrying about cap hits further down the line when the cap is going to be going up. You're going to have a little bit more, I don't want to say flexibility, but you can kind of skimp on some other positions in the future, and you're trying to win in the now. Yep. I mean, heck, the Saints have had $1 zillion over the salary cap every year for like the last 20 years. And I feel like they're never in salary cap trouble whenever it comes around. Now they're a bad team, this year, last year. Maybe that's where we end up heading if we push too far down the line, but we'll see. The Milton Fung comes in and says, Allen is Montgomery, Hall is Gibbs in this offense. I mean, we want that thunder and lightning style backfield. I honestly, if I could see Braylon, Breece, and Fields on the field at the same time, all lined up in the shotgun with running backs on either side, I'm in heaven. I think that is exactly what you should do constantly. You don't know which way the RPO could potentially go. You don't know if Breece is running out for going to be put in motion, and then all of a sudden it screws up what the linebackers are possibly thinking on where we could be going. I like the flexibility that type of offense could give us. What do you think about how we're going to utilize the 2 running backs? Has preseason given you any indication on what might happen, or do you think it's just been so vanilla we're just hiding all our cards?
Yeah, I think that that's probably more of the expectation or the answer is that it's been so vanilla we're just hiding the cards here. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know what the split's going to be like. I don't know if it's going to be like, Breece between the 20s and Allen from there in, mm-hmm. or if they're really going to, utilize, listen, if they're running that read option stuff, it might be Braylon Allen more often, because mm-hmm. you want that stuff to go up the middle, and then when they run the other stuff, the outside zone scheme or the play action stuff, that might be Breece. So, mm-hmm. Could it be closer to a 50-50 split? Maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. I'd be curious to look, and I will after the show. I'd be curious to look what the actual breakdown of Montgomery and Gibbs was last year.
Mm-hmm. Boys and girls, before we get too far into it, I do want to thank the sponsor of the channel, Chubbies. Are you ready for some football? If you're not, Chubbies is ready to help you with their NFL collection. Whether you're tailgating, grilling, or riding the highs and lows of the game from your couch, Chubbies has the official licensed NFL gear to keep you looking like the ultimate fanatic. With bold designs featuring your favorite NFL teams, Chubbies game day gear isn't just comfortable, it's a statement. Rep your team's logo logos in wildly comfortable polos, wave-making swim trunks, and gym-ready mesh shorts. Yeah, you heard that right. Swim trunks with your favorite NFL team's logo on them. All the comfort and swagger you need to take on every touchdown dance, chest bump, or dramatic fourth quarter meltdown. If you're not a jersey guy, this is an elite alternative. If you are a jersey fanatic, something tells me you'll love their NFL collection, because when you're invested in the game, your outfit should be too. For a limited time, use my exclusive code, JetsTalk20, for $10 off at chubbyshorts.com/JetsTalk20. Yes, that includes the NFL collection. Let your thighs out and let the good times roll. Chubby's is the ultimate football apparel brand, so much so they created their own fantasy league. George Kittle, Ian Rappaport, and others have come together to assemble the Chubby's League on NFL Fantasy. Each week, the top 5 scorers will win a chance at a Chubby's polo shorts combo with their team's logo. The grand champion gets the chance at the ultimate fan experience, a 5-city, 5-stadium NFL game tour with a +1, while the fantasy flop faces a hilarious and unforgettable punishment only Chubby's could pull off. Head to chubbyshorts.com/thechubbiesleague to learn more and have some fun. Get ready for the most outrageous fantasy football season of your life. And would you look at that, folks? For a limited time, $10 off with promo code JetsTalk20 at chubbyshorts.com/JetsTalk20. $10 off your order with promo code JetsTalk20. That includes the NFL collection. Support the show. Tell them I sent you. Express yourself and level up your game day wardrobe with Chubby's. Sorry. Talking about the league, talking about our team, our Jets. I don't know.
So interesting. I don't know how much you're on Twitter or you follow the Pretty Ricky guy, who drops all those nuggets, most of which come true.
Ooh, what are you saying?
The Raiders and the Patriots are in discussions with a trade that would involve Kyle Duggar for Jakobi Meyers.
I feel like that makes sense.
Jakobi Meyers going back to New England.
I could see that. I mean, he went over to the Raiders when McDaniels was still the head coach, right? Is that true?
Same year we signed Alan Lazard.
I think.
So was that McDaniels? Yeah.
I
it
think
was McDaniels.
that's right. Let me see. Josh Daniels. So he was the Raiders head coach until 2023. So yeah, same year. Yep. So I could see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I like Jakobi Meyers. I think he's got, I thought I saw somewhere 144 receptions since his last drop.
Wow.
I think that's what it was. I did not fact check it. I saw someone post it. So grain of salt with that thought process there. Let's see. Let's go through. Sean says he'd extend Quincy for one more year. We'll see. Let's hope this guy stays healthy and we have an 8-9 win season in playoffs next year. So Quincy's going to be 30 years old, or is 30, I think. He's right in that range. Do you think there's a chance he comes back next year?
Oh, man. I guess there's a chance he comes back, especially if he pops off in this Wilkes in AG defense.
Mm-hmm.
If he becomes the, and what's the guy's name? Who was a linebacker in Detroit last year? Was it Anzalone, Alex Anzalone? The guy who's like just an absolute stud. Mm-hmm. Coming off, playing in coverage, blitzing, doing a little bit of that. I think like if Quincy becomes that and becomes that guy, I think there's a way that he comes back. Again, it'd probably be like one of those 2 for 30 kind of deals, short term, because he will be 31 in year 2026 season. So,
Sean says, just imagine if Fields works out. I want to ask you, is there any number that Fields could attain or anything you could see from Fields this year that would prevent you from going quarterback in next year's draft? Like in my own analysis, I find it hard to believe anything that I see from Fields is going to have me passing on a quarterback early in this draft.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, listen, if Fields gives you, I mean, look at it this way, Ryan. Minnesota last year had a renaissance. They were able to pull the best out of Sam Darnold, right? Sam friggin' Darnold on his fourth team. We know the struggles, and he looked like, I mean, he was an All-Pro. He looked like a competent starting quarterback. They didn't keep him, right? They didn't keep him, even though he was that good. If Fields got that good, I think you still have to draft a quarterback, because guess what? You only have one more year of Justin Fields anyway, even if you wanted to keep him and let him start and so on and so forth. So I'm with you. I don't think there's anything in my, right mind that would make me, feel comfortable enough not to go quarterback in next year's draft. And again, some of that might be a little pessimism on what I'm truly expecting from Justin Fields. I don't think he's going to have that renaissance that Sam Darnold had in Minnesota. I don't think he's going to have that renaissance that Baker Mayfield had in Tampa Bay. I don't think he's going to have, anything close to that, because I just don't know if he's shown the same skill sets and aptitudes that the other two quarterbacks have,
Yeah, you'd have to see. Yeah, regardless of what he does, I think the history, like, at least I could have leaned on Sam in the past and been like, okay, we saw a 400-yard game from him. We saw, XYZ. He went toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers. It was the Jets. That was the offense that was bad, as opposed to Fields we've seen on a bunch of teams. Although I guess Sam's been on a bunch of teams now. I find it hard to believe he'll show enough to justify passing on the QB. Billy says, you guys think they'll keep Donovan Edwards? Most have been saying Pritchett instead. Hope you're right. Talking about our graph that we had up before, that was actually mine. I had my roster. I kept Donovan Edwards. Dom's did not have Donovan Edwards staying. I probably have far too many backs on our team. Like, I have the 4 running backs, the fullback, and the kick returner that all wind up falling under that same sort of umbrella. So grain of salt. I will probably be shifting this around a little bit tonight to feel I'm more in line with where I think it should probably be. But hey, look, I like Donovan Edwards. I'd love to see him moved for a late round pick swap, if anything. Like, I like the moves that we made with Phillips and Briggs. During the draft, we were bitching and complaining about how we didn't take a defensive tackle in the mid to late rounds of the draft. And now with 2 late round draft picks, and I think we've only given up 1 net pick on those 2 trades together, because we traded down in at least one of the rounds. You essentially give up what would be a 6th round pick for both of these guys with NFL experience. One of the guys being significantly younger with Juwan Briggs, and a guy that's seasoned in Harrison Phillips. So I feel like it almost works out better than burning a higher pick on a defensive tackle, depending on how you value the higher end picks that we made in this past year's draft. What are your thoughts on the D tackles and how we utilize those late round picks to pick up players that could be difference makers, as opposed to maybe using a late round pick on a rookie that may not see the field much?
Yeah, well, I like the idea and the fact that you got guys that weren't 1-year rentals. You're not spending draft capital on 1-year rentals this year. For, in essence, call it what it is. I think this year is going to be kind of a throwaway year to an extent. I don't think they're a team that's really built or made for a long run in January and February. So I like that idea. I mean, I don't know, Ryan. Anytime you give away draft capital, especially when you're a team that's already void in a day 2 pick for Hassan Reddick, right? And you have to do something to get up into, range to get your quarterback of the future, or at least have a shot at him. I think you'd want to keep all those picks, but maybe they saw a like I'm also for the idea that, hey, listen, you thought something was going to be what it wasn't, and you're right in a wrong. You thought you could get by with the Fedarian Mathises of the world and the 𝐀𝐿 and the Byron Cowarts of the world, and then you watched practice and camp all season, and you'd be like, yeah, that's not going to work. Let me go get some of these. Let me go get these guys. So, kudos for Muji for if that was a determination that they needed more help and they needed their guys. Kudos for doing it. I don't like the idea of trading future capital. I just don't. But again, we should have some extra picks. We should get some comp picks, at least 2 next year. So those haven't been factored in. So I don't know, man. I like the guys that we got. At least Harrison Phillips. I don't know much about Juwan Briggs, to be completely honest with you. And
I can pull up some of my. I had when I was doing my video, I had a whole. Let me see. I had a little thing set up to rattle off everything. I could tell you my thoughts on him. All right. So with Briggs, 23 years old, 7th round pick in 2024, played with Sauce Gardner at Cincinnati. Not that necessarily means anything, but kind of nice to have some familiarity in the room. 2024 regular season, he played the final 6 games. He had a run defense grade of 66.5, but had an 86.0 versus the Dolphins, with a total of 7 snaps over those 6 games. He had his tackling grade was pretty low at a 54.1, but 5 of the 6 games he played in were closer to a 70. There was one, his first game dragged it down. It was like a 23 is what they ranked him at. And then going into this preseason, the 2 games that he played, he increased every one of his run defense, tackle, and run pass rush grades from last year, and he had 4 stops in 2 games in the preseason. So again, preseason, grain of salt sort of thing, but I think young player that is trending up, that gives you some hope. Just some thoughts on that. On the Harrison Phillips side of things, I know we've talked about liking him a lot, but I thought it was interesting. His best games in the 3 years he was in Minnesota were his games against Detroit, which is why I think this regime was like, hey, wait a second, this guy's causing us problems left, right, sideways. Let's make sure we get him on our side this time. It was interesting. I like both defensive tackle moves. I thought they did a good job.
Yeah, and what was I going to say about that is that I think Aaron Glenn said in one of his pressers that Harrison Phillips was the guy that Detroit targeted, that they wanted to bring in. He ended up re-signing with Minnesota. So,
I did not know that. That's pretty cool. I like that. I'm trying to just look at my last topic here on my list for just the 2 minutes from now. So bear with me 1 second. Dom, before we say goodbye to you, any thoughts on what we've discussed so far?
I'm curious to see who's on the roster and who's not tomorrow in the sense of those back end guys. I think that the Jets fans and Jets Twitter as a whole is going to erupt if LT3 is not on the roster. I'm curious to see if they choose to take an extra linebacker. I'm curious to see what their plan is at wide receiver. And more so, I'm curious to see who they put claims in on. That's really the fun part, which I think doesn't happen until Thursday, right?
I'll be honest, I'm not too sure. If we're looking at final, well, I'll pull up your list one more time. Let's say we do have to put some claims in. I guess it probably depends on which position group you're putting the claim in for. That might, swap out certain players. Like we saw Harrison Phillips and Briggs get brought in, and then immediately we moved off of Green Beans guy, Mathis.
Fedarian Mathis.
Yeah. So
I think Braden McGregor is one of those guys that, I have him on my final 53, but he could be a guy if you found a linebacker that you really liked and put a claim in, you can, probably take him, because again, anyone you claim has to be added to the 53.
Mhm.
You know, I think maybe, I don't know, Brady Cook could be a guy that you could dump. Listen, I don't think I wouldn't put it past it. I don't know if he would, you know, if you ultimately didn't keep him, he'd probably get claimed, but I think JBC is a guy that I'm just curious about what his role is going to be. You know, he's done a little bit of everything for the Jets over the past couple of years, hasn't been able to stay healthy, has looked good in the preseason, but like, you know, preseason plays like Tarzan and regular season, he's more like Jane. So I'm not sure.
Well, anything else you want to throw at the chat before we bid adieu?
No, tomorrow, I think I'm going to be hanging out with Gunny tomorrow in the hangar, and got some other stuff in the works, and looking forward. This is going to be a busy week in NFL football, so let's see what happens.
I love it. Boys and girls, if you're coming out to the Talkin' Jets group buy for week 1, we got Dom, C, and Jeremy are going to be joining myself, O'Leary, and Green Bean at Tailgate, Joe's Tailgate. We're so excited. Totally sold out our group buy is, so it's been a lot of fun. Dom, so glad to have you back this week. We'll be talking some more ball next week, right here, 8 o'clock. Dom, you have been checked in from the cockpit. Let me just get off your screen. Boom, get out of here. You're gone. Always a great pleasure having Dom in here, as always. All right, boys and girls, I'm going to throw the call-in number in the chat. We're going to do some call-ins if you would like. Let's throw that in there. And then we'll talk a little ball, see where your heads are at on the 53-man roster, what you think the Jets should or should not do. I will be talking to the chat as well. So if there's anything you want to talk about, drop a Q, or if you have a question, drop a Q prior to your question. I'll note that as a question to keep an eye on and answer. Let me pin this to the top of the live chat. Bam! All right, that's in there. I've got a few different topics on my board. We can shift this around. It doesn't have to necessarily stay the same. But I've got, should the Jets keep a third quarterback? What are your thoughts on the defensive tackle trades? Donovan Edwards, does he make the roster? Arian Smith, is he wide receiver 2 at some point this season? Do we think he could crack into that threshold? And then 53-man roster predictions. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Let's go over to Max. Max, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you guys hear me?
I got you loud and clear.
So, some takeaways. So, the preseason game. So, I think penalties are a big part of the problem. You know, we had 10 penalties. We can't win games in the National Football League with the amount of penalties we had. We had 10 penalties against the Eagles. Granted, some of them were ticky-tacky. You know, Jarvis Monroe, he had a penalty, you know, on the holding call with the Eagles receiver. It was ticky-tacky. You know, there was no holding. There was no pass interference. The Eagles receiver ran into him. And then my other takeaways, you know, James Monroe stood out to me, and then Arian Smith stood out. And then my second topic is the Steelers game. I think the Jets are going to win 2017. That's my projection. Nick Falk, game-winning field goal.
Wins week 1, is what you're saying?
Yeah, yes. Jets are going to win week 1.
Week 1. I got faith that the Jets are beating the Steelers. I feel like we're going to come out with a bunch of piss and vinegar towards Rodgers, and Rodgers doesn't have the youthfulness that he used to have. That's my hope, at least. I want to see a win in MetLife.
I could agree with you, and it would be more sweet to put the Renegades on after. That's like the Steelers theme song. That'd be a good one.
What do you think happens with the running back room?
I think we're gonna put Donovan Edwards on the practice squad. He showed potential, and then you know we gotta keep Quentin Skinner. He played good, and then we gotta keep the kick returner, the punt returner.
Pritchett?
Yeah, Pritchett. We gotta keep him. Banjo was excited about him.
Yeah, I think he's definitely gonna make this roster. Max, any other words before I eject you? You got got a minute 20.
Jets are gonna win week 1, and then I think the Jets are gonna win 7 games. Go Jets!
I love it. Max, you've been ejected from the cockpit. There's a ball of energy that guy is. I feel like Mad Max just comes in, just going crazy right off the bat, and I don't know what's going on left, right, or sideways. I got to like decipher where the commas and where the periods should be in his string of words that are being thrown at me. But that's okay. We love you, Max. Great to have you in here. We got Cameron joining the show. Cameron! How you doing, dude?
I do not have that much energy coming from the gym. My God.
No, it's a totally different mindset when I talk to you versus when I talk to Max.
You know your people.
You make a lot more sense to me. Max, I think, is off his rocker. Sorry, Max.
Just a little bit. But you know what? You got to have them. You got to have them in the fan base.
So what are your thoughts? 53-man roster coming up. What are your feelings?
I don't think we need 3 quarterbacks. I'll start with the first thing you have there. As long as Tyrod comes back and Fields can stay relatively healthy, and Fields is youthful enough, I think he can make it through the season. And if we have to, we can pick somebody up later on. You know, maybe somebody gets cut or I know Kenny Pickett just got traded to the Raiders, right? Let's say he goes down and you pick him up for a game. You know, I can see like a scenario like that, a well-known name later in the season if there's an injury. Mainly I was calling about the trades that Muji has pulled off recently. I was genuinely impressed with the 2 trades. I know they're both defensive tackle, but I thought they were smartly executed, didn't give up too much, got value, clearly didn't feel rushed in the trades, and made us better in what is arguably a very important position. Because if you can get pressure up the middle and you can make a quarterback uncomfortable, looking at you, Rodgers, let's just start with week 1. There's nothing wrong with that in the NFL. It may not be the end-all be-all for winning games, but it certainly won't lose you any. You know, if you can make the pocket uncomfortable, that gives our corners time, that gives the linebackers an extra second, in coverage. Right. So I was impressed by his approach to trades. I think they were very smart. The roster, I would keep an extra tight end just because I haven't seen a ton that I believed in from Taylor this preseason. Again, I'm watching highlights. I don't have the full games. Ruckert has always been hit or miss for me. And I feel like we need one more dynamic option there. I'd invest slightly heavier, but that's just me.
Are you saying on offense in general dynamic option or in the tight end room?
I was thinking more of the tight end room because I think we have good receivers. I think running backs, we have a plethora of those, which is great. Quarterbacks can certainly move both Tyrod and Fields. So I think we just need a dynamic guy who maybe stretch the field, gives the defense one more thing to think about off the line.
I like it. Cameron, any last words before I eject you?
Have a good night, Ryan.
Good night, Cameron. You've been ejected from the cockpit. Always fun talking to Cameron. And look at this. We got our buddy Jake chiming in the chat. He says Mad Max did some white powder. Whoa. Definitely felt like it. Max is shot out of a cannon. Every time he calls in, he's just like very juiced up and energized. I don't dislike it. I love it. I want some more of it. I see Duncan in the chat. Duncan says, thoughts on cap carryover. I would rather not use it in 2025 and apply it to 2026. So not go after a guy like Clowney. Duncan, I would completely agree with you. There was a point in time where I was probably a little more geared towards a Zadarius Smith or a Clowney or someone like that for call it $7.5 million. And I thought maybe that would round out our roster a little bit better. Maybe that gets you an extra win or two. But realistically, I think this is a very intentional evaluation year. And I don't think we're going to overly spend to bring guys in. I think the moves that will be made will be similar to what we saw with Phillips and Briggs, where it's like swapping of late round picks. I would like to roll over all our cap space into next year because there's guys that I like more on this team that I want to see here longer term, not necessarily long term, but longer term, that money would be better utilized for. Guys like maybe you want to extend Will McDonald or Jermaine Johnson early. Maybe you want to bring back AVT and Simpson. If you have $80 million, you got AVT, Simpson, you could bring back Breece, and you could re-sign Quincy Williams. And that doesn't really blow the cap space at all. You could do that for a reasonable amount of money. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Breece is actually coming back. I think you're probably signing one of the two guards when it comes to the offensive line. And then Quincy, I think, is probably a coin flip right now. But I do like the idea of rolling Cap over. It's not even like a very attractive free agent class as it stands right now. Like, obviously players could still have good seasons that look more appealing come free agency, or guys will get re-signed that don't hit free agency, and other guys might just shake free that have expiring deals that we're just unaware of at this particular moment. Or there's like void years in contracts where guys are going to come off and become free agents that we're not necessarily seeing on Over the Cap or some of these tracking sites. So I like the idea of rolling it over. Once you know how this roster looks and where you need to invest money, like maybe we say, hey, look, we got a few edge rushers here that we didn't expect were going to be good, and Jermaine Johnson is a stud. He bounced back. Well, guess what? Now you're maybe taking the money you would have invested in edge rusher and free agency and maybe applying that to a different position. That's just an example. You know, who knows where it goes. I do think wide receiver 2 is probably going to be an area of concern. Arian Smith might wind up being a really good player, but I don't know if he's going to be your true wide receiver 2 moving beyond this year. Could you spend some money on tight end? Where are you going to shift that money around? I think it means more in 2026 than it does right now. Like, I don't know if there's some moves that could be made in this current year that are going to make me feel so much better about this existing roster that's going to translate into wins. I do think Clowney and Zadarius Smith are the 2 players in my mind that I would like to add if this was a playoff potential roster. It's going to suck when you get to the end of the year if we're like a game out of it. Of the wild card, we could have brought in one of these guys. But I fall in line with your line of thinking here, Duncan. Quick says, I'm counting on the system Engstrand's building to work. It doesn't have to be all Justin Fields. No, I agree. I think for me, Engstrand is more important than Fields right now because Engstrand is going to be the key piece that puts Fields in the position to succeed. I think that goes for if he's going to be running RPOs. I think it's going to go for his passing game. If you're having Justin Fields consistently throw 10-yard outs, we're going to lose every damn game. If Justin Fields, for whatever reason, cannot throw an out to save his life. But he can, you know what he can do? He can get out on the perimeter. He can make teams pay with his legs. He can run an RPO style offense. You can get the ball out to your playmakers in space. Like, those are the types of high percentage, high return type plays that I want to see come from Justin Fields. I don't want to see him dropping back 5 steps and reading an entire field. Let's make it half field reads. Have him roll out to one side, utilize his legs if he can. He doesn't have to stay in the pocket. I don't think it's, I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive coordinator putting him in the position to succeed as opposed to the natural God-given talent of Fields just overcoming an offensive coordinator, which is kind of what we sort of had to try and do with Hackett and to a lesser extent Todd Downing the last few years. So yeah, I think Engstrand is actually more important than Fields at this particular moment because of the power that he has as being the offensive coordinator. Where are we? James says, Ryan, what do you think about Breece and Braylon in the backfield? I think they should both be on the field at the same time with Fields. I think that would be a huge benefit. There's so much strength in having those 2 guys on either side of Fields because they provide different types of stress on a defense. Like, are you going to try and contain Fields or Breece bouncing it outside, or are you going to worry about Braylon just knocking your teeth out up the middle of the offense? The more opportunities that you could see with them on the field with Fields back there as well, like we're going to see 60% rushing the ball, if not more than that, throughout the course of the season. I think you're going to need to have these guys on the field at the same time and at least a few times a game to give you that opportunity. As long as Hackett and Salah are running things, I have so much more faith. He says, aren't running things. I have so much more faith. Yeah, I think the offense, I think the team in general just feels better, like in a better spot. Now, I felt that way with Salah coming in, with LaFleur, and I felt like we were in a better spot than where we were with Adam Gase. But I think once the Aaron Rodgers kind of trigger happened, that's when the Salah, Hackett experience kind of went off the rails for me. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Billy says it was preseason, so grain of salt, but the Steelers' starting defense looked awful in the one game I watched with them. Not much, but it's something. I did not watch the Steelers' preseason matchups because I feel like when I'm looking at our roster overall and I see DK Metcalf, well, I want Sauce on him. And I'm going to take Sauce every time. I think Sauce can take care of DK. When I'm looking at Rodgers, I know he can't move. So if we can get to him quicker by way of the blitz, like I don't see us using our front four consistently to get that pressure. I think it is going to be coming from different exotic blitz packages, guys dropping in and out of coverage. Maybe you catch Aaron Rodgers sleeping a little bit and you can catch him off guard in a quick pass. Maybe a D lineman ends up with an interception. I think we saw that once or twice last year on us. I don't want to say I'm not concerned about the Steelers. I think the Steelers are the better team. I don't know what the over under is. Do we know what let's see if we have that on here. Steelers Jets odds. So Jets are -3 right now, which I think is probably all right. They have the over under at 38 points, which I'm taking the under all damn day. I don't know if a team's getting to 20 points, whether it's us or the Steelers. Duncan says, I've seen a lot of 22. I agree. Davis is injured at running back. Yeah, Isaiah Davis, he was one of the guys I thought might be able to get the short-term IR, but it sounds like he'll be ready for week 1. Same thing with Allen Lazard. So my 53-man roster that I did have on here prior feels like it's going to shift. I had Brandon Smith and I had Allen Lazard on IR. So Lazard probably comes in, Brandon Smith out. If Isaiah Davis were to come out and he would hit the short-term IR, then I think it makes it easier to justify keeping a Donovan Edwards. I think it also gives you the opportunity to see what you have in Breece, determine if you're going to keep him, move him, and then you bring back Isaiah Davis, and then you have Braylon, Isaiah Davis, and Donovan Edwards as your 3 running backs. But again, I don't think Breece is getting moved until the deadline, if that happens at all. Where else are we in here? I think Edwards is more likely to get poached for someone else's roster than Pritchett would be if he's waived. I kind of disagree. Edwards has a lot of name recognition initially, but I think Pritchett has looked better overall in the preseason. I think any special teams coordinator that's kind of keeping their eye out for guys might like Pritchett. I view Pritchett as more valuable than Edwards right now, at least for us. Curly says, every preseason, we as fans get boners for these late-round undrafted players. Let's be honest, they aren't going to impact the team. You know what? I don't like your tone, Curly. I want to be complaining about player 51, 52, and 53 all season long, and then who knows, maybe we get to a critical point in the year where maybe it's Pritchett jumping on a fumble or Nwangwu returning a kick or something like that in crunch time. You never know. Next man up is always there. Your 53rd guy could become your 48th guy with injuries. So it all sort of got to pay attention. Got to pay attention. Every roster spot counts. Mike Saunders. Why is it automatic that Tyler Johnson makes this team? I don't think it's necessarily a lock, but I do have the Jets holding on to him. When I was at training camp, it looked like they had every intention of utilizing him in a pretty heavy capacity. Whether that you saw that reflected in the preseason games, I think is for certain debatable, but I would not say that. Ricky, buddy, please stop spewing nonsense and saying Breece is getting moved, especially after AG said he's not. You can't spend all offseason saying we need more playmakers, then keep suggesting trading Hall. To be fair, I'm only suggesting trading Hall if we're knocked out of playoff contention at the deadline. I'm not saying trade him right now. That has been my stance the entire time. I would prefer to keep Breece Hall. I think he's more valuable, even though he's not getting these 1,000-yard seasons rushing. I think he's far more valuable as a home run threat consistently, if he's going to get 1,300 yards, 1,400 yards, and it's not going to be 1,000 on the ground, I don't care. It's the overall yardage that I want to see. Now, me saying, oh, I think we might trade him, that's because I don't think we're going to retain him after the year. I don't think we're going to give him the franchise tag. I don't think we're going to try and give him a multi-year extension or even a year extension. I think he's going to try and go somewhere else. And because of the amount of cap space we have, we're not going to get a comp pick for him. So would I rather hold on to Breece Hall in a season that might be like a 6-win season? No, I'm sorry. It's not. Like if we can get some degree of draft pick, and I don't know where that threshold is. It might be a 4th-round pick. If no one's offering us a 4th-round pick for Breece and they're like, hey, we'll give you a 5th or a 6th, then kick rocks. I'm fine with rolling the dice and seeing if maybe he wants to come back next year. But if I could get a 4th or a 3rd or even a 2nd, if he really balls out, that's where I would prefer to go. I think the Jets are going to need to go after a quarterback early in this draft. It may involve some degree of trade up, and I think any additional pick will help you, whether that's with a trade up for a quarterback or just to have an extra pick to draft additional guys that you're going to need on this roster regardless. And Breece Hall leaving for nothing would absolutely drive me up a wall. I don't want to see that. So if the plan is to keep him beyond the trade deadline, then I'm hoping there's either a contract or a franchise tag coming his way at the end of the season. Shafiq says Sauce better have at least 5 interceptions this year. I mean, for the amount of money we're paying him, he's got to start getting turnovers. That's the critical part of this entire thing. To not have any interceptions feels egregious at $30 million a year. Andrew, what's good, dude? So excited to have you with the group buy. Going to be a lot of fun. He says, this 3rd preseason game really flipped my opinions on other guys. Martinez, Pritchett, but it's the coach's opinions that matter. Can't wait to see the final team. Let's go Jets. So my thoughts, I really like Pritchett from what I saw in the preseason. I think he's definitely going to make the roster. Martinez obviously was waived. Honestly, I like Martinez more than I like Cook, which is I feel weird saying that, but I didn't think Cook looked very good this last preseason game. But I think it's the years of contractual control. It's Armand Membu's former quarterback in college. Like, could this kid be a long-term backup? I think that's probably more along the lines of why I think they're gearing up towards keeping him on the practice squad. But yeah, it's weird to have my opinion changed in the 3rd preseason game. I feel weird about that. But when you're talking about 3rd, 4th string guys, I guess it's sort of where that wheelhouse is going to fall. Mike, Wilson, Reynolds, Brandon Smith, Arian Smith, Skinner, Pritchett should be our 6 wide receivers. So you have us dropping Lazard and who else? Tyler Johnson are the 2 that I have that you do not have. That would be an interesting move. Lazard, it feels like they're ready to keep Lazard. They restructured his deal this year. They've talked him up about blocking. We want to be a heavy run team. I mean, maybe they move him. Maybe they cut him. I feel like I'd be a little surprised if I saw that. Hall is shot. I don't see the speed since his Denver injury. He tends to run into O-line's ass. Yeah, I did see 2 years ago some of the speed we got from Breece. I thought we had a lot of situations where Zach couldn't get the ball to Breece 2 years ago. Last year, I don't know if it's a blocking scheme. We switched stuff up last year. Remember, we changed. We had Morgan Moses on the line. We had John Simpson on the line. We went to more of a power run situation, and I thought that might have been the reason why Breece was stalling out a little bit. I don't want to imprint my thoughts onto what preseason looked like for what Breece could look like in season. Now, if we get into game 1, game 2, game 3, and he looks a lot like Breece Hall in the preseason and in this past year, then my tune will change. Obviously, I'm kind of holding on to hope that former amazing running back that I would have drafted top in any of my fantasy leagues last year would show his face. So I'm hoping we get to see a bounce back year from Breece Hall. Tony really likes Mike's wide receivers in Wilson, Reynolds, Smith, Skinner, and Pritchett. I think a lot of people will like that. We need 2 10-sack guys, at least 4 or 5 DBs with 4 to 5 interceptions each to make the playoffs. I mean, Will McDonald can get probably 15 sacks on his own. I think as long as you're in a situation where you can pass rush, like if we're down multiple scores consistently in games, we're not going to have the opportunity to pass rush, which really hurts us from a numbers perspective. Jermaine Johnson, can he show the explosiveness coming off the Achilles? I think is going to be a critical point of contention this year. I think had he not been hurt last year, he would have eclipsed the 10 sack threshold. So I think it's possible we do hit those 2 10 sack numbers with those 2 guys. As far as 4 or 5 defensive backs with 4 or 5 interceptions each, that feels like a lot. Like we're going to need the other teams to be passing a lot. And because of the way we play our brand of offense, I don't think that's going to lend itself to scoring a lot of points, which means other teams may not be forced into throwing. They might still be able to utilize the run a little bit more. You got to take advantage of errant passes. You got to take advantage of your opportunities. So hopefully Sauce can catch a few of these. Hopefully Stevens can get his head turned around. Hey, I'm hopeful. I'm just I think I'm less optimistic about the defensive backs getting turnovers than I am the edge rushers. I think Stiggers should get cut, says Andy Gonzalez. I don't think that, but I'd love to hear what your thought process is for him getting cut. Tony says Skinner is talented. He needs to make the team. I mean, I'm not going to go to bat for Allen Lazard. Like if Allen Lazard gets cut, so be it. I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. Just think it's the direction we're headed. Earl says, what is your opinion of Jay Tufele? I didn't know a whole heck of a lot about him until preseason games. With him absolutely, he has the offsides initially and then dominates. What was it, the Packers game that he did that? I liked it. So optimistic, I'll say that. Andy, you don't know what you're talking about. Talking about Stiggers. Stiggers is quality cornerback depth piece and great piece for special teams. I would agree. I'm a fan of Stiggers. I don't want to see him go anywhere. I envision a situation where Brandon Stevens is no longer on this team in 2 years, and then you got an A.Z. Thomas versus Stiggers competition. Hopefully A.Z. Thomas is your guy across from Sauce, and then Stiggers could just be kind of like a long-term guy on our back end for depth piece. I love it. Mike says Jets should attempt to turn Stiggers into a strong safety slot corner hybrid. I mean, it seems like he's willing to play anywhere. Between special teams and outside corner is really where he's kind of, I guess, been his entire time. Has he played many snaps in the slot? Let's see. Let's see where his snap percentage has been the last few years. Or not years, but in the past, going back to maybe college too. Let's see. Snaps by position last year. In 2024, not in preseason, in regular season, he was only in the slot twice. He was in the box 8 times. He was out wide 38. He had a total of 263 snaps with the large bulk of it coming on special teams. He only had 48 snaps on defense this last year in 2024. In the preseason, they played him out wide at corner 53 times. They had him in the slot 2 and box 4 times. So I don't think there's any thought process in him converting to that type of role, Mike. I'd be surprised. I think Lazard and Johnson will make the team. My question is why? Sure. I mean, that's it's sort of where I had mine. I have Lazard and Johnson both making the team. I just had Lazard on the IR to start the season, which seems like it's probably going to be wrong. But I do have them both making it. James, Ryan, what do you think base wide receivers are? Garrett and Reynolds, Arian Smith, or Tyler Johnson? I think it depends on what you're looking to do. I think if you want to try and run the ball, Lazard's probably going to be out there. I think if you're looking to take your shot deep, then I think Arian Smith is going to be out there. I think he's going to have far more opportunities than we expect. If there's 3 wide receivers out there, I do think Arian Smith will be the 3rd wide receiver. He's so dynamic, whether he's on an end around or just burning deep. I think that's something that your offense can greatly take advantage of, whether the ball's going to him or not. I think Garrett Wilson can feast underneath. I think the tight ends could feast underneath. I think, just having a corner or a safety trail off with Arian Smith is valuable in its own right. I do think, obviously, you got Garrett, and I do think Reynolds is our de facto wide receiver too. It wouldn't shock me if him and Smith have similar snap counts, especially if we're running multiple, 2 tight end sets, 2 running back sets, and we're a little more limited on the wide receiver side of things. I don't think we're going to see Fields go to, through his progressions to wide receiver 2 or 3 too consistently. I think it's going to be something like Garrett, tight end, Mason Taylor, and like Breece or running back. It's going to be like a 3-tier sort of progression that gets goes from further to closer out, depending on how Garrett looks, where the fullback is. And then if it's not there and you can't dump it off to the running back, Fields is going to run. That would be my gut feeling. Kevin says, assuming Breece gets a bag elsewhere, what would we get as a comp pick if we let him walk? One, I don't think he's going to get the bag elsewhere. I think he's going to be somewhere in like the 10 to 12 million a year range. And I think we're not going to get a comp pick because we have $80 million that we need to shell out. Now, I hope a lot of that $80 million or $70 million, whatever it works out to be, rolls into guys that we have on this roster and goes into guys that have been cut from their rosters on other teams, because that doesn't hurt the cap, the compensation pick formula. But I think from a straight up value perspective for Breece, I think you're looking at best like maybe a 5th round pick in a comp pick in 2027. I think I'd rather the extra pick now a little bit ahead of time than hoping you get a draft pick 2 years from now for a player that's just going to walk. Like, Breece is too talented for me to just allow him to walk for nothing. That would really burn me up. Frank says, so are we all hating that Lazard won't start the season on IR? I mean, I kind of am a little bit. Like, I sort of would like to see him hit the IR to keep some of these other players, and then you might be able to stash him a little bit easier after cut down day. But if he makes the roster, look, Brandon Smith, I would pull Brandon Smith off the roster and then hope he makes waivers and clears waivers and hits the practice squad. But I'm not going to lose my cool either way on this. Ryan says, don't want to cut Lazard prior to the pick game. Yeah, that's sort of where my head's at. I feel like he's more likely to do damage with Rodgers against us if we keep him, if we don't keep him and we cut him prior to week 1. So I think you almost got to hold on to him, or you IR him so you just can't play with the Steelers. That's sort of a weird gamesmanship type of thing. Like, is there any situation where Lazard gets cut immediately following the Steelers game? Maybe. I mean, I could sort of see that. It's a weird way to think of it. He took less money to stay here, though, and he did seem like he wanted to hang around. So I'm not upset with keeping Lazard. It's just one of those things that he's not going to be here next year. So if there's a young guy that might be more beneficial in year 2, year 3 of this current regime, it's probably worth holding on to those guys as opposed to Lazard. Mike says we should check in with the Eagles about Tanner McKee. Therefore, when it's week 6 and Fields shows us that he's Fields, we have a viable option with upside. I like Tanner McKee. I liked him a lot coming out of Stanford. I thought he would have been a really nice, worthwhile swing instead of Jordan Travis. I didn't hate the Jordan Travis pick. I thought it was a fine swing of the bat with a player that had a lot of upside coming off an injury. Obviously, it didn't work out. But I liked McKee a lot. I like Milton a lot, too. Those were the kind of the 2 guys I liked. 𝐀𝐿 Lake Jet fan. I'm assuming that's who it is. 𝐀𝐿 Jet fan. Isn't McKee hurt for a few weeks? I didn't know he was. I did know that the Syracuse guy that we just played versus the Eagles played the entire game. So I was expecting to see McKee come in at some point. That didn't happen, so maybe he is injured. Yeah, it's 𝐀𝐿. I changed it. See, I don't like when you change it because I don't remember it all the time. But it's close enough that it's fine. Tony, I am glad Jets aren't chasing wins by throwing money at older vets. They're building it right. Yeah, and that goes back to the Jadeveon Clowney, Zadarius Smith conversation where it's like, okay, yeah, those guys would be upgrades over Clemens. I mean, obviously you'd save, I think it's $3.5 million from cutting Clemens. Like if you wanted to cut Clemens and bring in one of those guys, now you're talking maybe the net difference of like $4 million. Maybe that's enough to justify it. But like Tony's talking about here, and like some of us have talked about in the chat prior, I would prefer to roll over that money into next year because I think it makes more sense to retain some of your own players or bring in guys that you know you may need in 2026 after you have evaluated this roster. Boys, before we get too much further, I want to take another talk with you about the other sponsor of our channel, House of Atlas. There's something about a clean Monday shave that just hits different. Lately, the razor from House of Atlas has become part of my reset ritual. Coffee in hand, questioning my Sunday bets, and trying to forget I benched the guy who dropped 30 in fantasy. Whether you're heading to the office or gearing up for Monday Night Football, it's the perfect way to shake off the losses, clear your head, and start fresh. This thing is no joke from the team behind Athena Club, the women's razor everyone's obsessed with. They've brought the same care and quality to the men's side. 5 precision blades reinforced with welded steel so there's no flex or irritation, a serum strip that makes the shave super smooth, and a precision trim edge is perfect for cleaning up your sideburns and getting right under your nose. It also looks sick. Check out this color. Look, bam! That's a jet green if I've ever seen one. I've liked this thing. You can even see the hair. You know it's been used. Got to clean that bad boy out. Sorry. It has some weight to it. Doesn't feel cheap or plasticky. No, it is solidly built. Whether you want to go clean shaven like Tom Brady, loser, or just tighten up the lines on your Ryan Fitzpatrick beard, this razor's got you covered. Honestly, we should probably send one over to Patrick Mahomes. That goatee could use a little tune-up. And now, for a limited time, they're offering 20% off site-wide plus free shipping at houseofatlas.com. Just use promo code JETSTALK at checkout. That's houseofatlas.com, HOUSEOFATLAS.com, with promo code JETSTALK for 20% off everything. Plus, House of Atlas is now available at Target stores nationwide. Stop wasting money and time on shaving products that don't look good, aren't effective, and cost way too much. Visit houseofatlas.com today. Trust me, you'll love it as much as I did. Boys and girls, I appreciate you tuning in here. Make sure you hit that like button. We're going to talk a little bit more to the chat. I'll throw up my, let's see, do I have my multi thing up here right now? I do not. Hold on. Give me a second. I'll get you my roster up here so that way it's all looking good. Switch it over here. While we're talking, I'll switch it behind the scenes. This is how this is going to work. Boom, boom. We're going to do the screen share. All right, you guys can see my screen up here. You can see who I have us keeping and who I have us getting rid of. Now, my main areas of like, I don't love, I will say these are the two that I think could be getting the boot. Jeremy Ruckert and Donovan Edwards seem to me like that may make the most amount of sense. I think Carter Warren is a potential keep because of the contractual control that you have over him. Maybe that gives you some happiness as opposed to just losing all your tackles at the end of the year or all the depth tackles at the end of the year. And then Brandon Smith, I would say if Alan Lazard isn't coming off, if Alan Lazard is not going to be on IR, then Brandon Smith goes down to the practice squad. So that would be like really the biggest switches for me. but I want to hear from you guys. Where do you think my roster is? I feel like I've got too many backs between the fullback Beck and 5 running backs, one of them being Nwangwu. You guys can let me know. MJ from Jax, what's up with Irv Charles? Irv Charles is on the IR right now, or the PUP. He had a torn ACL. I believe it was like week 10 or 11. It was towards the end of the season. So it sounds like he'll be out till at least the trade deadline, probably closer to Thanksgiving. Recovering from an ACL. I know, but is he on the PUP? Will he cause issues with the 53? No, I think he is actually on the PUP right now, so he shouldn't have any concerns. Ryan, are we worried about the offensive side of the ball for Pitt besides Metcalf? I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not. I think Rodgers is a sitting duck back there. I do like their running game. Whether or not we have solved the gaps in some of our interior defensive line is yet to be seen. I like the additions of Harrison Phillips and Jawan Briggs. Let's just see how that plays out. A lot of this is such a crapshoot because we don't know how this team looks against true, not vanilla offenses, not vanilla defenses. Preseason is just such a hard thing to try and gauge outside of like the depth pieces. So we will see. But I'm not overly concerned about their offense because I don't really trust Rodgers based on what we've seen. The Jets' edge group seems very thin and worrisome. I agree. Because Jermaine Johnson may not bounce back. Will McDonald, we don't know if he's going to be an every down edge rusher. Like, we might have a very, very rough year at edge. Like, we might be seeing Clemens playing more consistently than we really want to see. Hopefully, Jermaine Johnson can play throughout the entirety of the year, on every down, because he would typically be your every down guy. Hoping the extra pounds on Will McDonald really get him in early down opportunities. I wouldn't even mind just playing Will McDonald every down just to see what happens. Like, is he a liability in the run? He might be. He very well might be. But is he going to get better if he gets more opportunities at it, more reps at it? In an evaluation year, that's something that I think I'd like to see, especially if you're set on the idea of potentially paying him a lot of money in 2020, I guess after the season. Like, if he's getting a contract similarly to Wilson and similarly to Garrett, where you're paying your first round pick a little bit earlier than expected, I want to see that he could do more than just rush the passer. I would like to see that. Hugh Lake, we need to remember that this defense is the Salah defense where they are constantly rotating. Oh, isn't the Salah defense is where they're constantly rotating. Yeah, it may be more, same guy on the field consistently. Now, that might not mean fresh legs all the time and maybe not as much push later on in games. I do think I think the benefit of Salah's system was guys were always fresh all the time. And then now you just got to factor in how much is that drop-off from a tired Jermaine Johnson or Will McDonald to maybe a Michael Clemens, it could be a Michael Clemens, it could be a Eric Watts, it could be a Tyler Barron or Braden McGregor. What does that drop-off look like comparatively? Hopefully our top two are playing a lot and they have a lot of opportunities. James, I know McCrary Ball is this regime's guy they brought in, but Zaire Barnes played well the other night, and this kid, 𝐀𝐿 is going to be good, I think. Yeah, I think I like the idea of holding on to Zaire Barnes if I'm moving off of one of Jeremy Ruckert or Donovan Edwards. Like, that would probably be the next defensive player on my list if I'm getting rid of one of those two. I tend to lean towards getting rid of Edwards over Ruckert, even though I don't think Ruckert really justified his spot. I think the relationship potentially with Ruckert and Fields from their time at Ohio State might cause Ruckert to stay on this team longer than maybe he otherwise would have. Now, that being said, Ruckert didn't have a great receiving career under Fields at Ohio State anyway, so that may not factor into it. We'll see. I do like the idea of keeping Barnes. That hit he had on the running back was a lot of fun. He came out like a fucking missile. But again, how many linebackers are you going to consistently use? Are we going to be in a 2 linebacker set all the time? Maybe having 5 linebackers isn't really the move, but we'll see where they go. Beck is a vested veteran. I think the Jets cut him for some roster gymnastics. Joe, we were actually talking about that, not necessarily with Beck. I would be fine with that because there's just less teams that have fullbacks. But we were talking about it with Nick Folk and Thomas Hennessy. I don't think either of those guys are really going to go anywhere. I think they'd be happy with like a handshake agreement, like, hey, come on back here. Let's keep some guys. But then it's a matter of who you're moving to IR. Dom was telling us that you can designate guys on IR without them counting against the 53-man roster right now, and they don't have to miss the full season. So if you were to do it, you could make those moves happen now and still retain guys like Folk and Hennessy, or even someone like Beck. Other guys I would consider, Carter Warren, I think, is an interesting name to potentially hold on to. I think Zaire Barnes is an interesting name to hold on to. Dom brought up a really good point with why am I drawing a blank? Cook. Why am I drawing a blank on his friggin' first name? I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on that. But if Cook comes in as the quarterback for quarterback 3, especially if Tyrod's not ready to go, like, there is a chance Fields gets hurt at some point. Brady Cook, there it is. Thank you, James. I could see a situation where they hold on to 3 because of the health of Tyrod currently, but I don't want to see that happen because unless they feel like they can cut Tyrod now and he's not going to go anywhere because he just wants to hang around with the Jets and has an opportunity, and because he's a vested veteran, right? Either way, I think a third quarterback is possible because of the health of both Fields and Taylor. I would just like to see that be an elevated from the practice squad type move consistently, as opposed to losing someone else on the 53. So let me go through my roster real quick. I want to give you guys my thoughts. I've highlighted the 2 names that I think could be off my roster. You know what? I'll highlight Brandon Smith too, because I think in the event that Allen Lazard is not hitting IR, Allen Lazard comes in, Brandon Smith comes out. Quarterback-wise, I have us keeping 2, Fields and Taylor. The running backs, I really want to find a way to hold on to Edwards, but I'm having a tough time justifying keeping 5 running backs plus a fullback. Seems like a recipe for disaster. But in a team that's going to be running the ball 60+% of the time, maybe it's not that crazy. Like, if you're going to spend only 40% of the time throwing the ball, do you really need to carry a 7th wide receiver or, an additional tight end or something along those lines? Maybe there is some justification in the tight end, in the running back room. Wide receivers, I have Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith, and then Jamal Pritchett as our main guys coming back. Again, Allen Lazard would be in for Brandon Smith if Lazard doesn't hit the IR. Tight end-wise, Mason Taylor is our starter. I have Jeremy Ruckert. I could see him as an outside chance of being cut. Stone Smart, I have us retaining him, and then Andrew Beck as the fullback tight end sort of, hybrid, rounding out our tight end room. Tackle-wise, I got our 2 starters in Olu and Membu, and then a core 4 and Mitchell. Mitchell gives you guard tackle flexibility. Our guards, I have AVT and Simpson with Xavier Newman behind him. Newman gives you some center flexibility. In the event that Simpson or AVT go down, you got Tippmann at center who can kick over to guard. Then you have Myers slot in at center, and then Newman could either be the backup center or just an additional backup guard at that point. I think Newman, Mitchell, and Tippmann give you some great flexibility, and even AVT to some degree too. If you wanted to potentially bounce them out to tackle, ideally we keep all our starters in their existing places and you're not moving them around. That gives us 26 players on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side, I have us with 6 edges. JJ, Will McDonald as our 2 starters. Hopefully we get a lot out of them, but to be fair, there is a lot of question marks with both of them. Jermaine Johnson, how does he look coming off the injury? Will McDonald, how does he look adding a few extra pounds to him? And can he be an every down edge rusher in a season that he's probably hoping to get paid at the end of the year? Michael Clemens, a player that I would have thought for sure would be cut with a $3.5 million cap savings, stays on this team because of the lack of edge depth that we currently have. Tyler Barron, draft pick from this year, McGregor had himself a little bit of a burst the last preseason game, and Eric Watts. Those three guys are going to be our developmental players that we're hoping can show out and be some long-term depth on this roster. Interior of the defensive line is a little bit easier to figure out. Thought obviously you got Quinnen. I thought 𝐀𝐿 really set himself apart in that first preseason game, and then you trade for Harrison Phillips and Ja'Juan Briggs just last week. So obviously I feel like they're making the roster. I don't think you're going to move off guys that you just swap picks for. That would be silly. Phillips had his best games as a Viking when he was playing against the Detroit Lions. I think that's why we brought him in, or I think that's why this regime brought him in. When you look at Ja'Juan Briggs, I think there was a lot of opportunity for him in the tail end of last year and the little bit we saw from him in the preseason while he was with the Browns. I think that's a really nice get as well. So an interior defensive lineman, I really do like that. Linebacker-wise, Jamien Sherwood, Quincy Williams are two starters. Maui Goa and McCrary Ball are the guys that round out that position group. I'm open to holding on to Zaire Barnes. You probably wind up dropping someone like Donovan Edwards or Jeremy Ruckert if you wanted to facilitate that on this particular roster that I have, assuming Brandon Smith and the Lazard swap is the one that would happen with them. Outside cornerbacks, you got Sauce Gardner, Brandon Stevens as your starters. Quantez Stiggers, A.Z. Thomas, and JBC round out the cornerback room. I like the positional flexibility that JBC provides. You got Michael Carter in the slot as always. Isaiah Oliver has some slot cornerback flexibility, got some safety flexibility, got some special teams flexibility. I do really like that. Safety room, Tony Adams, Cisco. I think Malachi Moore will wind up forcing his way into the starting lineup at some point. Now, he can kind of flip-flop back and forth between strong safety, free safety. Honestly, I think a lot of these guys sort of fall into that similar kind of category. So just play wherever you're comfortable. The dynamic flexibility between those two positions is everything's more of a hybrid nowadays anyway. But I feel better about the safety room than I think I did heading into the offseason. I don't love Tony Adams the way maybe some other fans do. I think Malachi Moore could maybe overtake that. But we'll see. We'll see. And then rounding out the special teams, you got Nick Folk, Austin McNamara, and Thomas Hennessy. What say you? You think my 53-man roster is totally jacked up? Let me know in the comments section down below. If you think that's not where things go, maybe you go a different direction. I'm excited to see what the Jets end up doing. I'll have this roster updated by, I think it's 4 o'clock is when rosters have to be finalized. So when the Jets put out their final roster, I'll update this. I'll pump this out to Twitter so you can share it with your friends, your family, your Jet fans, your people you hate that you're arguing with on Twitter all the time. Maybe that's what you guys are looking forward to tomorrow when the inevitable player that gets cut that we don't want cut happens. We'll see. Boys and girls, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you tonight. It's 10 o'clock over here in the Jets Talk household, and it's time for Ryan to go to bed. I'll be back tomorrow, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock with the Talking Jets crew, myself, O'Leary, and Greenbean. So make sure you hang out with us. I'll see you tomorrow. Jets!